Hello everybody. Today we are going to learn SS lesson number 4, Ancient Civilization. Here you can see all the civilizations of the old world, that is Egyptian, Mesopotamia, Indus Valley civilization and China. Apart from this you have the Roman and the Greek civilizations, but for 6th standard this year you are going to learn only 4 civilizations, that is Egypt, Mesopotamia, Indus Valley and Chinese. Let me go to the introduction of the lesson. This lesson introduces the prominent civilization like Egypt, Mesopotamia and China, besides the Greek and the Roman civilization also have been introduced in this lesson. The contribution of all these civilizations have been briefly described in this lesson. Competencies. Here we are going to learn the first and the second. The Greek civilization and the Roman civilization is not taken for this year. So we are going to do only the competencies, that is the first one and the second one. You should understand the importance of the river valleys in progress of the prominent civilizations of the world. Know the political history of Egypt, Mesopotamia and Harappa civilization and their contribution to the world. Let's read and enjoy the lesson. Food, water, air and light are inevitable for any life to survive. Similarly, shelter and clothing also are the basic necessities for mankind. Generally, we can get water and favorable weather conditions on the banks of the river for leading life. So, the prehistoric period settled on the banks of rivers and later civilizations prospered there. Hence, the river banks became the cradles of ancient civilization. So, here you can see the river banks. They are more important because they are the cradles of ancient civilization. Mankind, what does he need? Water, food, air, light, shelter, clothing, weather conditions. So all these you find on the river banks to lead your life. So the prehistoric people, they settled on the banks of the river because they were getting all these facilities and thus their civilization began. Map showing ancient civilization. You have already seen it. Now let us begin with the Egyptian civilization. This is the first civilization of ancient world. This civilization took birth on the banks of the river Nile. The Nile is regarded as the longest river in the world, and it is a major north-flowing river in Africa which joins the Mediterranean Sea. If the Nile had not flown through Egypt, it would have been a desert. Thus, Egypt is considered as the gift of the Nile. So here the river Nile plays an important role in the Egyptian civilization. It is the longest river in the world and it flows from it is a north flowing river and it joins to the Mediterranean Sea. If this Nile wouldn't have flown in Egypt, so what would Egypt have become? It would have become a desert. Thus, Egypt is considered as the gift of the Nile. Here you can see river Nile, the picture to the left, and also to the right you can see the river Nile flowing through all the cities, and it has joined the Mediterranean Sea with its tributaries. Now let me continue with the political history of Egypt. Egypt witnessed the rise of political dynasties about 5,400 years ago. The kings of Egypt, they were called as pharaohs. Menes was the first pharaoh. His capital was Memphis. Among all the pharaohs after Menes, Khufu, Amenhotep, and Thomas were prominent kings. Let me continue. The largest pyramid of Giza is called the Great Pyramid of Khufu, which was built by Khufu. Amenhotep expanded his kingdom and established an empire by his conquest. Thutmose I was the greatest conqueror among all the later pharaohs. His daughter Hatshepsut came to power after him and came to be known as the first empress of the world. Finally, about 2300 years ago, Alexander the Great conquered Egypt. He appointed his military general Ptolemy as his representative. Later, Ptolemy declared himself the king of Egypt and established the Ptolemaic dynasty. The popular queen Cleopatra was the last ruler of this dynasty. Eventually, Egypt became a province of Rome. So, here, let me explain to you. As the pyramids were built by Khufu, the largest pyramid of Giza is called the Great Pyramid of Khufu. And later, Amenhotep expanded his kingdom and established an empire by his conquest. Then, Thutmose I was the greatest conqueror among all the late pharaohs. He had a daughter called Hatshepsut who came to power after him, and she was known as the first empress of the world. Later, in 2300 years, Alexander the Great conquered Egypt, and he appointed his military general Ptolemy as his representative. Later, he established the Ptolemaic dynasty. Among them, the popular queen Cleopatra was the last ruler of this dynasty. Egypt became a province of Rome. Here you can see the pyramid of Giza. Can you see the picture? It is the pyramids which were built by Khufu in Egypt. Now let us see to the contribution of the Egyptian civilization. The Egyptians, they were very popular in growing wheat and barley, that is the food crops of the people of Egypt. The water of Nile was used for agriculture through canals. So they built many canals, and the water of this Nile river was used for agriculture. The condition of the slaves was very pathetic. Here, pathetic means problematic or difficult. The slaves were finding lots of problems in Egypt. The large pyramids were possible because of these slaves. Women were given important status in this society. The people of Egypt believed in life after death, so they preserved the dead bodies. The dead bodies preserved were called as mummy. In ancient civilization of Egypt, each city had its own guardian goddess. Sun and rivers were considered the worshipped as god. So these people they worshipped the sun god and the rivers as their god. The Egyptian scripture is known as hieroglyphics, which means sacred writing, and they used ink to write on papyrus grass growing in Nile River. So this grass was found near the river Nile, and they used this papyrus for writing, and they wrote it with the ink. They had enormous knowledge of geometry, which was used in building large pyramids. So here they were experienced in drawing and also in building pyramids geometrically. The large statue of Sphinx is the most attractive Egyptian architecture. The Sphinx is an animal with the body of a lion and a head of a man. So you can see this Sphinx, which is the attractive Egyptian architecture. The body is in the form of a lion and it has the head of a man. Here you can see the mummies in the coffins. The hieroglyphics, that is the sacred writings which they have written. This is the script of the Egyptians. You can see the statue. It is the Sphinx, which has a body of lion and the face of a man or the head of a man. Now let us go to Mesopotamian civilization. Mesopotamian civilization flourished in the areas that lies between the valley Tigris and Euphrates rivers in modern Iraq. So where do you find Tigris and Euphrates rivers? That is, today we call it as Iraq. In this place or in this area lies a valley where this Mesopotamian civilization flourished. In Greek, Mesopotamia means the land between the rivers. So what is the meaning of Mesopotamia? It is a land between the two rivers. Which are those two rivers? That is Tigris and Euphrates. This region was ruled by Sumerians, Babylonians, Hittites, Assyrians, and Neo-Babylonians. These were the rulers of Mesopotamian civilization. Let us see to their political history. Sumerians were responsible for one of the first civilization in this region, that is the Mesopotamian region. These were the first people. Ur, Krish, and Lagash were the important city-states that flourished here. So in the Mesopotamian civilization, Ur, Krish, and Lagash, these are the important city-states. Sumerians used cuneiform system of writing on wet clay slates. So these people, the Sumerians, they wrote through the cuneiform system, which means they wrote on wet clay slates. Mesopotamians were in contact with Indians. The Akkadians ruled after Sumerians. So when the Sumerians fell, the Akkadians started ruling Mesopotamia. They were considered and destroyed by the barbarians. So first the Sumerians, then the Akkadians, and next were the barbarians. Later came Amorites. Another Semitic tribe ruled from Babylonia. They brought the Akkadian state under their control and established a large state. Here you can see the pictures of cuneiform system of writing on wet slates. It is the script of the Mesopotamian. Let me continue with Hammurabi. Hammurabi was a famous king among the Babylonians. He was famous for his code of law. His code of laws is based on ideas like an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Babylonian rule was followed by Kassite and Hittites races who ruled over some time. So the code of law is based on the ideas like an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. This is Hammurabi code which the Babylonians followed it. Ashurbanipal, he was the last and the great king of the Assyrians. He defeated the Hittites and ruled Mesopotamia. He was a brave warrior and also a poet. He founded a royal library at Nineveh. Can you see the picture of this last and the great king of the Assyrians? Let me go to the next king. He is Nebuchadnezzar. After Assyrians, another Semitic tribe, the Chaldeans, re-established Babylonia. Nebuchadnezzar was greatest king among them. He created hanging gardens, which was one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. Today we have many wonders of the world, but of the ancient world we had seven, and it was one of them. That is the Hanging Garden of Babylon. Finally, about 2500 years ago, Emperor Cyrus conquered the city of Babylonia, which resulted in the downfall of Mesopotamia. So this was the end of Mesopotamia when Cyrus king conquered the city of Babylon, and it was a downfall for the Mesopotamian. Now let me tell you about the contribution of Mesopotamian civilization. Mesopotamians were the first to adopt the code of laws in the world. Hammurabi was the first ruler to enforce the code of laws. As I have already told you, Hammurabi's code, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So this was accepted or adopted by the world. He had prohibited abuse of slaves in his code of law. So he had given importance to slaves there, and he kept a code for these people because they were abusing those people. He prohibited this through his code of law. Mesopotamians had established trade relationship with Harappa and Egyptian civilization. Each city had a guardian deity. Here deity means god or goddess of the civilization, as in Egypt. High raised temples named ziggurats were built here. Cuneiform scripture was used by these people. Gilgamesh is a great epic poem of Mesopotamians. So these are the things which Mesopotamian civilization contributed to the world. Can you see the picture of ziggurat? Thank you, children. Thank you for watching. Please show love, like it, share it, subscribe it, and press the bell icon.